All right, so there was some really, really crazy tech at CES, and some of it could literally turn your life all the way around 360. In fact, there was a lot of crazy tech, including screens, translucent screens that actually would be usable. Of course, it's something that's been around for a very long time. And then, of course, there was a lot of stuff that was just kind of something that has ideas that are 100 years old, but now may finally be coming to a car near you. Some of the craziest parts about this was actually the Hyundai that actually does a 360 in its spot. This is, again, a Hyundai that can not only do 360s, but it can also go diagonal. This was quite a trip here. So then the back and the front wheels go. Now, this may look familiar because there were Fords that did this back in the 20s. They had concept designs. But the thing is most people say, oh, yeah, that's cool. And they've tried this kind of stuff before. But they're talking about on a car that can be affordable and that can be mainlined and be all over the place. So imagine this. They would literally get rid of 3-point turns altogether. That is the crazy part about that. And this is coming to many manufacturers. They're talking about these four-way wheels, and Hyundai is leading the way. Oddly enough, South Korea. We're going to talk about this and many other things. In fact, CES was pretty crazy. But we're going to go over world updates, and we're actually going to show you. It's more interactive today, so stick around. Today's show is a little bit later than normal, but that is for a very good reason, because we have a lot coming, and we have a whole new thing that we wanted to try out. So today we are going to be talking about a new airstrike. We're going to talk about the largest Red Sea attack. We're going to talk about Guyana and Ecuador and the next fronts. And of course, U.S. a helicopter was seized. China and the DoD planning. New drones of war. Russia laughs at Sweden. NASA delays the moon mission. I bet there's going to be a group of people that are rolling their eyes right now. They're actually delaying it by a year. And then waterboarding in the U.S. The Clintons hiding or, quote, hanging with Newsom in Mexico. We have EpiPen, Bill Barr, Les Wexner. Who's next? It's almost a who's who of who's going to get thrown under the bus next. All of that in just a moment. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. It's gonna take a while to realize their enemies are you and I. All you gotta do is ask why is the world on standby? I know that you don't have to be high. All right, what is going on, guys? Today, the full bibliography is always available over on marfooglenews.com. Just look for today's thumbnail on standby. This ship is sinking fast. All over the world update. It has all of the tweets, including all of the technology. All of that is available right at your fingertips. Not to mention the sources for all of this news. If there's something quite unbelievable, you can go see where we got it from. Most of everything right now is unbelievable because truth is stranger than fiction at this point. But let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So remember, you can also go to the moderator team and find all of your wonderful mods and their channels, their artwork, their books, over at marfooglenews.com/friends. So we have some really cool stuff today, but I did want to make sure that also, if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for our email list and our notifications. If you're not getting notified by the platforms, then make sure to get notified by us. It's very easy to do. Just click the box that says, I would like to get notifications. Normally, I close those down, but with today's, our shows, basically right when we go live, that will let you know, especially if we have a later show like this. We have a later show because we have a lot of really cool stuff that we are trying out here. So bear in mind. All right, so we from Las Vegas and CES, we're actually going to take a journey over to Iraq and Baghdad. We're going to be talking about the U.S. airstrike foils rocket attack on Iraqi airbase. Dex, do you want to go over this?
Certainly. So we have yet another strike. This time, the airstrike actually supposedly foiled a rocket attack that was coming on the Iraqi airbase. So U.S. airstrike on a rocket launcher late on Monday foiled an attack from an al-Assad airbase, which hosted U.S. and other international forces in western Iraq. Two different sources have talked about this. So the military there said the rocket launchers fixed on the back of the small trucks had been parked in a rural area about 7 kilometers or 4 miles east of the base, with at least 2 rockets ready to be fired towards them. So they, I guess, caught wind of it, caught an eye on it, and basically ordered in a strike and struck them before they were able to launch on them. So I guess the main point here is we continue, and this isn't, there's been numerous of these smaller type of attacks, but we continue to see these attacks escalating in the Middle East there, specifically in the countries around, anybody that's has any type of organization that's backed by Iran in it, which Iraq does. The other, obviously, countries around there all do too. And as we have troops or bases in there, they become targets, and we continue to see our military be put in harm's way, so to speak, with all of these launches that keep happening. It's good to see that they caught this one early and struck it, and they were able to strike back or strike at it before it hit them. But yes, this is not going to be good when it, breaks through the line, so to speak.
No, it is not. And then in the same area, we have, of course, the U.S. UK forces repel largest attack by Houthis at the Red Sea. U.S. and British naval forces shot down 21 drones and missiles fired by Yemen-based Houthis on Tuesday towards the southern Red Sea, the United States said, with Britain hinting at further measures to protect international shipping rights. So we have all sorts of kind of events popping off around the world. Before we move on, and we're going to get into some really stressful stuff, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. And again, if you haven't seen EMP Shield before, this is a device that can actually protect you against not only EMPs, but of course CMEs or a Carrington level event. We are independent here at Marfoogle News. Our channel is on its own. We don't have a multi-channel network. We just have the Marfia and the Foogle fam. So thank you guys for supporting us. But in another way, this is not like handing us a donation. This is getting yourself something that's actually going to be a protection against 2 major events. And 2 of these are not only possible, one of them is probable. It's going to happen at some point, which is a Carrington level event. This can be wired into your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, solar generators in the case of the Flex 1500, and your home, and ham radio and about 30 other devices, and it will protect it and ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry it. So make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/EMP. You'll get $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of all of their regional and holiday sales, every one of them. So make sure to utilize that every time. That's, again, use the code MARF. And let's see here. So, and we're going to go over, let's see here. We've got in Guyana, and in Guyana turns to U.S. to help boast its military as territorial dispute with Venezuela deepens. So we've talked about this, and of course with Venezuela, this is another front that is opening up. Everybody is picking their sides. We have a war that has been baking all over the world. And a lot of people are really torn right now because you have independent media and alternative media saying five different things. And then you have mainstream media all kind of in agreement. It seems like, everybody is either on one side of the scope or the other. So there's like two paths you could take with mainstream media. With alternative, a lot of our community is actually really torn up about what is going on right now. A lot of folks think that there is going to be a Fantastic Freddy that is going to happen, a FF event that would bring into things. But some think that that FF is going to be way bigger than anybody thinks. As far as with why Guyana and why Ecuador and all of these different places fall into it, is there's major moves happening around the world. These smaller countries are actually resources for the bigger countries. So these arguments and these fightings that are happening that you think is localized and between their local factions and things, almost every time has had either three-letter agencies involved or six-letter agencies if you're talking about other places. But there's always something going on with the bigger countries. These are usually proxies or paid wars or funded by CIA or other KGB or others. But it says that Guyana turns to U.S. to help boast its military as territorial dispute with Venezuela deepens. Now remember, Venezuela is a big part of the future conflict because Venezuela is working very, very closely with Iran, and they are about a 30 minutes jet flight to Florida. So geographically, this area is, pretty scary to say the least. And then them taking over Guyana, this kind of came out of left field for a lot of people. Many people don't even know where this is on the map, let alone would understand why this would be important to any of us. But this is here on the map. You can see this is Guyana right next to Venezuela, and right here is Florida. So regionally, it's pretty important that, this is not as far as you would think, especially by jet. Now, Venezuela and Iran, which is across the ocean, they have had multiple times where they've been trying to ship things, and the U.S. stood in the middle and said, no, you're not going to take those ships there. And secretly, a lot of people think that they were the ones who actually sunk the cargo ships from Iran that they said were turned into military ships. There was a ship that sunk on its way to Venezuela because they thought something was on it. There's been a lot of rumors over the last couple of years that that was a nuke heading to Venezuela, but that was before they even thought that Iran even had one, right? So there's a lot of really confusing, stories about that. But as far as Venezuela taking over countries, why are so many countries right now? Are they just all in a mood to take over? Dex, it's kind of simple to see that it's like all of these countries want to take over their neighbors right now. Why right now? Why in the last couple of years is this happening? Is it because of CV? Is it because all of these countries are broke because the world shut down? Like, what is actually happening here? Or is there some event that is coming and they all know it?
Well, it certainly has everything to do with money and resources. This particular issue, Venezuela has claimed that territory for a long period of time, but Guyana has actually administered and managed and acted as if it was their own. So it's sort of been a disputed area. The reason why it's so important is because of the oil that is there. It's extremely rich in minerals, extremely rich in oil. And as we've seen, Venezuela being a very large oil producing country, also very poor at times because they haven't managed their money very well, or at least haven't done things correctly with their inflation. But at the same time, as you said, they're backed and partnered with BRICS, specifically with China, specifically with Russia, specifically with Iran, definitely with Iran, and everything that's been going on there. So that's I got to believe that because of the lines that are being drawn in the world on one side or the other, that everybody's looking to grab what they can get the resources they need so they can be bolstered for the days that are coming ahead.
Yeah, something. What do you guys think? We'll have it over to the chat here in just a second. What do you guys think is going on with all of these countries? And I mean South Korea, North Korea, Israel, Hamas. You've got Venezuela. This and now Ecuador is into the mix. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Uh, Obviously, China and Taiwan. Japan is getting involved in the mix. You have all of the European countries talking about Russia taking over the Baltic states, whether it's true or not. We'll see. It's a matter of time. Why do you guys think that everybody is trying to take over their neighbors right now? Is there some event that is coming soon, or is it truly what they're saying that resources are running out, and in the next 20 years, everybody's going to have to fight over them? China gets the minerals, says Captain Opana. Deborah Lanning, BlackRock. Let's see here. Solar Monk. The world is evil, Marf. I agree with that. Alliances are nothing new. Many times it's in preparation for war. I agree with that as well. It's a U and an N agenda. I agree with parts of that. Yeah. Weak pres makes for opportunities. One coin to rule them all. Who said and I missed the name on that, but yeah, weak pres makes for opportunities. But the pres isn't really in charge. There was already a corporation in charge. There's corporations in charge. There's probably a smaller table of the biggest corporations that have the president come in and sit with them. That's who's telling him what to do. The people that funded everything about his life. The guy didn't get rich on his presidential salary. He got rich from taking money from corporations. All of them did. It's not just President JB. It's everybody. In fact, Trump, whether you hate him or love him, the one thing you can say is he didn't get rich by taking money from politicians or from corporations. He took money from all sorts of different places and he was the corporation, right? So it was a little bit different. He was the big corporate thing. So if people tried to offer him $1 million or $2 million to a regular president, $2 million, we saw some of the deals that went through with JB's son. It was like for $25,000. So obviously they weren't like multi-billionaires or anything. They got to be millionaire status by taking $30,000 for saying hi, for doing this, for that. Whereas, it's a lot harder to bribe somebody that already has $1 billion in the bank. It just is. So not saying he's unbribable. I'm sure there's a price tag for all of these people, but it's like that's the first time we had somebody that was already a billionaire that kind of got into that spot or close to a billionaire. And yeah, as far as like the small group of table that are, actually making all the decisions. All right. And then from Guyana over to Ecuador, Ecuador gets U.S. aid pledge to fight cartel terror campaign. So it says that Ecuador's embattled president said that he received a pledge of aid from the U.S. to help contain the terror campaign by drug traffickers. Bonds rallied. It says, quote, "We had a meeting with the U.S. Ambassador Fitzpatrick yesterday afternoon after the decree, and he said that in a few days, 2 to 3 days, they'll arrive in Ecuador with an assistance package," President Daniel Noboa said on Wednesday in an interview with radio network Canela. The nation's dollar bonds erased losses, with notes due in 2035 rising 0.3 cents to 36 cents on the dollar, according to the indicative pricing data collected by Bloomberg. A crackdown on drug trafficking triggered the war between the gangs and the Ecuadorian state, Noboa said. The crisis erupted after a notorious drug trafficker vanished from his cell over the weekend. That's not shady at all. And it says Noboa, who took office 6 weeks ago, has declared a state of emergency and called out the army to try to rein in the cartels. They responded by organizing prison riots, storming a TV station, torching cars, and taking police hostages. It says inmates are still holding 125 guards, 14 other prison employees hostage in 5 jails in an Andean and Amazon areas of the country. This is really nuts when you see how widespread this was. Now, there was a couple of initial videos coming out, and one of the videos was a whole crew of military soldiers jumping out of a truck. And people were like, oh, big deal. A bunch of military guys jumping out of a truck. But yeah, all over the country. In fact, you could say that maybe the response is even crazier than what they did. There's all types of areas shown in the different videos now, and some have argued that these are fake. Like there's way too many at this point for it to be fake. There are probably a good 1,000 videos from around the country showing the military in action. And I think I don't know if from what I see, it seems like there's a lot more military than gangsters, but it could be totally backwards. They have taken the thing is they can be dressed like anyone, whereas the police and military they're dressed like military. With these guys, they could just walk into a building unannounced and they could take people hostage. So it's a lot harder to stop something. You can't really tell the difference between gangs and cartels and civilians. But again, this could be related to three-letter agencies. Somebody could be funding this. We know that three-letter agencies have funded cartels, have given them weapons. If they support the opposite cartel, or if they hate a cartel enough, they will actually support and help a neighboring cartel to essentially, support the lesser of two evils. So, Dex, some of the videos are just absolutely nuts. As far as, there's at least 10 different videos from different places of people being held hostage. What is their goal though? What is the end goal of what they're trying to do?
This guy ran on a platform of trying to get rid of the cartels and get rid of the violence because it's so bad there. And that's pretty much what he was elected for. Now, doing that, and since he's only been in since November, but as he's starting to do that and starting to put the pressure on, we're seeing what's happening. The cartels are just pushing back hard, and they're saying, "No, we want things the way they were." Whether it was the corruption in the government that supported them, or just the fact that they were left alone. So I think that's part of it. But there's some other interesting things about this guy. He is actually the youngest. He was elected at age 35. He's the youngest president of Ecuadorian history. He also, before he was elected, he went on a road trip to try to drum up some help along the way, and not help for just his campaign, but help for the country. And in coming to DC, he met with the World Bank, the IMF, and the Organization of American States to do some, I guess, ask for some help or ask for some opportunities with them in his country. So we wonder who may be entrenched here, is whether or not they're entrenched with him or if somebody's entrenched with the cartels. I likely believe that he's been put in power and there's something else going on here.
Can you repeat that one part? So you're saying that they met with U.S. Before he did this, he met with different people from the U.S. or what countries did he meet with?
He went on a tour of the U.S. and Europe prior to taking office. He traveled the United States and Europe to search for investors and business leaders to assist the country's debt crisis. He came to D.C. He met with the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the Organization of American States.
Did he take a rest stop at the WEF? This stuff can't be made up. Like everything that is happening in these I don't know if you'd call Ecuador. Is Ecuador? I don't even think third world countries is a thing anymore. Like you're not supposed to say that, but developing country. Would you call Ecuador a developing country, or is it not? It's not.
They have some problems. They're pretty low on the GDP line, and they're run by cartels. So I don't think they're doing all that hot at the moment.
Yeah,
and lots of people are leaving that country to try to get into ours.
Yeah, and it's like it's like there's always some sort of connection to a Florida man. Like, I mean, really, stopped in DC, and you think that doesn't have anything to do with what's going on now. Every one of these has some sort of ties. Back when Venezuela's power went out, they accused it on the U.S. because two guys from Florida were involved. It's like every story we have covered, there's some sort of tie back to DC. I mean, of course. And that's the crazy part when you realize that the reality of our world, every story you see in the news, that there is a story underneath it. And when people call us crazy for asking questions or for having side theories, it's like we know that the reality of this is that there's secret deals and corruption going on at every step of the way, no matter which direction you look in this world. There's direction, any direction, you're going to see corruption. You're going to see bribing. You're going to see resources and two-facing. Excuse me. It's like no matter which way you look, it's insane. And it's crazy. Like the reality of the world is completely and utterly different from what we see and what we're being told by media. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and I would just reiterate, this is just the first. This is just the beginning. The begin it always starts with aid. Aid is simple. Send money, send water bottles. It's not water bottles, it's usually lots of money. But that's the first thing. Let's get the money in there, get the dollars flowing in to help them, which really lines pockets and does what it normally does. But the next step will be, well, maybe we need some weapons. Maybe we need, now that we got this money, maybe we can buy back some or use that money to buy some, nice, vehicles for our military and for our troops. And then can we get some better equipment, better, rockets or things so we can fight off these cartels? And it'll grow from there. And then it may even go so far as to be like, well, we need some help. So can you bring some people too? That's when things go to the next level. And watch it. It may not go that far, but it's not unlikely given the fact that there's this tight relationship there.
And now over to Somalia, the conflict in a UN helicopter, which folks were just talking about the UN. Dex, do you want to go over that? I'm going to pull something up while you do. But the Somalia conflict and the
Wow.
helicopter that was seized.
So a UN helicopter and all of its passengers were seized by the group, the T group called Al Shabaab, and some are suggesting that they made an emergency landing in this territory, and others are saying they just landed in the wrong area. But nonetheless, they were immediately confiscated, so to speak, or taken captive. So the helicopter, the pilots, all of the passengers are now under control of this group, and the group is affiliated with that infamous group that we used to talk about back in the day, Al, and then Qaeda, and that group hasn't really been around. It's been around for 20 years, but it seems like it hadn't been talked about much lately. But anyway, this group is affiliated with that, and this is what's happening right now in Somalia. No new updates yet as far as what's happened. They were about um, they say it crash landed potentially about 43 miles southeast of Bab, wherever that is. But they don't know anything else. They said there was no UN staff on board, but there were personnel from the UN. It was a UN helicopter and their passengers that were on board. So we'll find out more as it develops.
By the way, I just noticed. I don't know. Do you guys see this too? The way that the belt is way up on the waist, and I don't know if this would make sense for Somalia terror groups, but is does this look like a woman's figure to you? And I think maybe in their culture they have both men and women in these groups, but a lot of them don't. As far as from what I've studied on other, I don't know about Somalia though. Does this not kind of look like a woman walking? And then the high waisted belt way, way above, like above the hips. And then the hands and how that, and it looks like a woman. The reason why I say that is because, like, with things like this, you never know if they're ops, if they're something to cause a big stir and something that the UN can go in and go, look at what happened here. We need to go in there. Dex, go ahead.
It could also be that strap for the backpack or for the rucksack if they pull it around the front. Like the guy in front doesn't have it done, but he looks like he's got a sack on. I don't know if the one
The guy
behind him does.
behind does too, but it's like you can see it's way, way higher. I don't know. And then also the feet, the hands. The hands look very dainty. I don't know. Yeah, let's see here.
How about them combat boots?
Well, and the high step too. The high step that she's doing there.
I should say combat sandals.
Well, I could see in Somalia having sandals instead. Well, exactly. I don't know. Everybody else is wearing combat boots. She's wearing like, I don't know. I mean, what it's wearing. We don't know what it is, but something about it and the shoulders and the shape and the way that it just sits down like that. It's not. I don't know. But the reason I say that is because of the whole fact that a lot of this stuff could be operations. It could be a thriller agency op or something. All right, and then heading over to China, or I'm sorry, to Ohio, U.S. and China conclude 2 days of military talks in Washington. Oh, nothing weird about this. So, mind you, I'm sure that most people are super happy that of course everybody is talking and on the same page, right? But this is kind of just makes you wonder, like, what's actually being said in these meetings here. Now, again, let's see here. Let's go. The United States and China wrapped up 2 days of military talks in Washington on Tuesday, the Pentagon said, the latest engagement since the two countries agreed to resume military to military ties. Washington and Beijing are at loggerheads over everything from the future of democratically ruled Taiwan to territorial claims in the South China Sea. Ties are still recovering after the U.S. downed an alleged Chinese spy balloon in February. They're still recovering, and you know how they framed it here? They framed it like we're recovering because we took down their gear. Like, oh gosh, that was so mean of us to take down their balloon after it went over our whole country and got footage and sensor layouts of all of our bases. Yeah, that was so rude of us, right? Mind you, they could be saying this like, that we're mad at them, but really we're not. They've literally hacked our critical infrastructure. Why are we even talking to these people? I'm sorry. I think it. Yeah, I think that China needs to go, but that's just my personal opinion, and I mean the CCP, not the Chinese people. Washington and Beijing are at loggerheads, and it says the 17th round of talks saw Michael Chase, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for China, Taiwan, and Mongolia, meet China's Major General Song Yanchao, Deputy Director of the Central Military Commission Office for the International Military Cooperation. It says the two sides discussed U.S. PRC defense relations, and Chase highlighted the importance of maintaining open lines of military to military communication in order to prevent competition from veering into conflict. The statement added, Pentagon officials say communication between the two militaries is key to preventing a miscalculation from spiraling into a conflict. The top U.S. military officer, General Charles Q. Brown, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, held a virtual meeting last month with his Chinese counterpart, General Liu Zhenli. Now, I may be wrong, but Charles Q. Brown, is that the replacement for Milley? Is that Milley's replacement? Because Milley, if he was in this meeting, I would be really worried.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I believe Liu Zhenli, he might have been replaced during that whole kind of switch out, but he might be the same one. So Milley was on like a first, speed dial with Zhenli or whoever preceded Zhenli. And he even told Milley, Mark Milley told China that, hey, if our crazy orange man, pushes the button, we're going to give you a heads up and we're going to call you first. If they decide to nuke you, don't worry. I will give you a heads up so you can respond and take us all out. I wish I was making that up. Like, that sounds insane. One of our highest, generals saying we're going to give our adversary a heads up if we do a surprise attack. That's traitor. That's treasonous. That's a traitor, in my opinion. But now they're in these talks. There's a lot of doubt about a lot of folks that are in office right now and whether they have connections to China. Now, it reminds me of the whole, like, the Red Scare and everything else. And you could see that happening now where people could, but the thing is nobody is questioning that. Why is nobody questioning that? Back then it was like, oh, are you a Russian spy? Are you a Russian spy? They still do it. But yet nobody is like saying, hey, are you a Chinese spy? In fact, Dex, didn't somebody sleep with a Chinese spy, or was that a Russian spy? And they just kind of brushed it over. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was Chinese spy.
You could literally sleep with a Chinese spy and then they'll brush it under the cover. Like, why is nobody questioning all of our politicians? Like, you would think it would be another Red Scare, like everybody would be doing it, unless that they're so much involved in it that if somebody suggests, like, hey, maybe we should, start checking to see if people have ties back to China because they're our adversary, maybe there are 10 more politicians who are like, nope, nope, we don't want that. No, hold on, I got to count my money again. Yeah, no, 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 we don't want that. Hey, I need another 20,000 for me to say we don't need that. Okay, thanks. Yeah, we don't need to check if anybody is a Chinese spy. What'd you say? Oh yeah, we shouldn't even talk about that. But again, these 2 days talks, Dex, what do you think happened in these 2 day talks? What do you think could have happened?
Oh, the crazy thing is they have been plotting the plans for what's gonna happen next between the 2. Certainly, that's something that, they could go on if for those that like to ponder those unbelievable but almost possible scenarios when you look at some of the ties between our country and our leaderships with their country. So yeah, I don't know. It's on one hand you want them to have these conversations in the sense that it would be nice to ratchet down the tension so we could think that we're not going to war. On the other hand, everybody sort of kind of and myself has these feelings that there is no organic in this. It's very inorganic, and it's all part of a plan and part of a system. And maybe that's what they're doing, just playing in the system.
And it's like when China came to that conference not too long ago, they were the only country that they made requests like, "Hey, we want you to fly in students, Chinese students, and wave our Chinese flag as Xi Jinping drives down the road." They cleaned up San Francisco in an area that was overrun by homeless in a few nights, something that they have been asking for in that exact neighborhood for decades. They've been saying, "Hey, it's getting worse. It's getting worse." Once they have an event there, overnight, it was clean. They pressure washed everything. They cleared out all of the homeless. They cleared out everything for blocks and blocks and blocks. And all of a sudden, it looks like it's a beautiful neighborhood. They planted plants. They made beautiful trees, which, by the way, I just saw a couple videos that they didn't even plant. They planted a few trees that they didn't even do properly. So the trees are already dying because they planted them just so haphazardly that essentially they just dug a hole, popped it in to look pretty for that day. And it's like they used and they argued, "Oh, well, this is budget we had put aside." Okay, what about the budget you have put aside for that? Why doesn't that go towards, like, I don't know, uh children in the country that don't have meals, or something that is an emerging kind of issue that is getting worse and worse and worse, or maybe hire a couple more people at the southern border. I don't know, something like that. But of course, when they need the money, when it's for that purpose, it's just like that. And it makes you think, like, none of the other countries, you didn't see people from Korea flown in to wave Korean flags to wave in them, or the Japanese prime minister. You didn't see it for any other country, but for China, we cleaned up a whole neighborhood. That should say something. Like, why are we kowtowing to a country that is hacking our critical infrastructure, that is stealing our stuff? That's like if somebody comes in, grabs your TV, your neighbor who always keeps their window open, you can see your TV, you can see your lawnmower, they're riding your lawnmower, and then you're like, "Hey, come on over for dinner," and then telling your family, like, "Hey, we really got to clean up. Chow is coming over." And who knows, he uh use the nice silverware too. The silver, pull the silver out, because they're probably going to need to steal it. I think it's insane. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Inquiring Minds, thank you again for yesterday. Stephen McMahon, KT Cleans a Lot, thank you so much for your support this week. Ilea, thank you for modding. Schaefer Girl, thank you. Judy Bira, thank you. CMAC, Gunpowder Productions, K. Parker Frazier, Sharon Davis, LOD Will, of course, Bones and Tub Show. It was nice seeing you the other night. And then Renee Alera, thank you. Anthony Mack, After Death, and Troll Slayer Liz Potter, thank you. Craig Lonsinger, Stephen McMahon, and many others. And then I did want to read a super thanks on last night's show. Thank you so much. Waiting for the King 360 says, "For by grace are you saved by faith, and you not of yourselves. It is a gift from God, not by works, so no one can boast. Ephesians 2:8-9. Judgment is at hand and Jesus is at the door. Believe in him and time is running out. Thanks for your great channel. We're waiting for the king, and thank you for your support. Thank you for supporting Independent, and thank you for the great comment. Again, thank you so much for popping in on the super thanks there. All right, and let's go over to Utah. So before we do, I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out Energy. This is a U.S. company that makes one of the best products out there. In fact, if you want a solar generator, this is the one to go for. It is modular, it is expandable, and of course, it is going to be changing over the years as far as all of the things that you can add into it. It already has mods that can essentially make this any system you want it to be. If you want it with one battery and take it with you to power your power tools at work, you can do that, or go take it camping. Or if you want to expand it up to 96 batteries and have a full-on UPS system, a UPS mod, a supercharger mod with 3 times as many panels, you can do that too. Go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. Again, this is the same company that is now actually going to be shipping out their Flex Tactical, their new unit, to the Army. This unit was actually designed with the Air Force Research Laboratory, and this is their new top of the top of the line solar generator. These are silent, so they do not make any noise. Nobody is going to hear this from 3 blocks away. If you've ever had your power go out, especially if it's snowy weather, you can hear for half a mile anybody who has a gas-powered generator, because usually they're running outside. That's not going to be a good thing during an SHTF situation, because you're going to want to be a gray man. These are great because you can run them inside your house. You have unlimited power as long as you team this up with solar panels, and or you can charge it from your wall while you do have power. So when your power does go out, it will switch over and you can use this. Again, that won the SBIR Phase 2 contract, and those are heading out to the Army. There's a wait for these, and these are in such high demand because lithium is now being fought over. Countries like China actually have a huge swath of control over many of the actual resources used to make these batteries. So to get your hands on these, you'd want to get them sooner than later. The price on lithium and all of the other factors and other materials have gone up and up and up. And as long as you get a good one that's going to last a very long time, that's going to be less of a worry the sooner you invest. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Not only are you going to get a huge discount, but you're going to help our independent channel. Thank you for not skipping this. Again, this helps us survive, and it's something that you are going to get something you can use for years and years and years, and even possibly save your life, and you're helping us at the same time. Alrighty, guys. Thank you again. marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. All right. And then, Dex, if you want to go over the next one, I'm going to actually pull this up here in just 2 seconds. If you want to go over, Iran has developed a new attack drone that has 1,000-mile range.
Wow. Yeah. So they're getting more and more advanced, and these are disposable. So they're very inexpensive. This is a new drone that's been unveiled that will be, I guess, sold to Russia, obviously used for the conflict in UKR. Yeah, that thing's still going on over there, even though the funding is drying up, but they're still going at it. So they're estimated to have a range of 932 miles. It is very inexpensive, so to speak, to build. These are like the 3rd or 4th version of these Shahed drones that they've been building. 10 foot to 8 feet long type small drone that can be launched probably off of a truck or other things like that. They did say that they're going to have the ability to have live communication. In other words, live video. So they could have live streaming capabilities, allowing the operator to identify the targets in real time, which I guess is something they lacked on these other ones. So again, the earlier versions were, as they call them, disposable drones, because they make a one-way trip and then they're done. They're getting more advanced with what they're building. I guess if they keep doing this, they'll eventually get them so expensive that they don't want them to be one way. But yeah, at this point, they're still able to do them fairly inexpensively. I think they're estimated around $20,000, which is a lot less than some of these big missiles.
Oh yeah, and to have live streaming capabilities 1,000 miles away, it's that's not very good in the wrong hands. And heading over to Moscow, talking about Sweden. So we covered this over the last couple of days, that Sweden has essentially come out, and one of their top officials has said, people have said this before, people have talked about this a lot, but I'm saying it with the full force of my office. Sweden needs to be ready for war. And this isn't the first. We talked about the outgoing Dutch commander, who is still actually in charge, saying that the Netherlands citizens need to be ready for war with Russia. So maybe these guys are getting tricked, but these are the same gentlemen who have been in meetings with high-ranking officials from all of the other NATO countries, and they are saying to their people, to their citizens, to get ready for war. Everybody's going to be torn about, which way to believe on this, if it's propaganda to scare their people, because scaring citizens of the countries, that happens in every country. But at the same time, with all of the other signs and different things that are going on, I think it's really clear that the war is the real part here. The reasons for the war, the agenda for the war, the motives for the war, that is all secretive. A world war is happening right now as we speak, in my opinion, and it's going to go hot relatively soon. That's my thoughts on it. Let me have yours. But now Moscow was mocking them, right? Dex, do you want to go over this real quick? I'm gonna close this out for 1 second.
Yeah, certainly. So the Russian senator had come out and was sort of downplaying the fears, as they call it, that Sweden was voicing, and he said, very specifically, his comments were along the lines of, apparently this is how they try to give Sweden a geopolitical importance that it does not have. Sometimes it seems that some Swedish military personnel, as well as journalists, are almost dreaming of war, end quote. And then he went on to say, apparently they can't calm down since the defeat of Poltava. And that's referring to a 1709 defeat between the Swedes and the Russians, where it was a turning point in the Great Northern War, and was the rise to Russia's, or beginning of the rise of Russia's great power status. So Pushkov is, basically criticizing them, poking fun at them for sort of laying claim that war is coming from Russia. But at the same time, if they really believe it, or if they think it's going to happen, or if they have inside information or great intelligence that says it's going to happen, I don't think Russia's going to sit on the other side and go, yeah, those guys are right. Look at them preparing. They're getting ready because they know we're coming. They're not going to say that at all. They're going to put remarks out like this. They're going to downplay it. They're going to act like there's nothing happening, and then they're going to strike. That's just their style. They're not going to announce what they're going to do in advance. They never have, and they never will.
Yes. By the way, thank you everybody. Popping in Macalepsy, Kato, Nine Tails. We've got Solar Monk 1. Stevie Wonder, thank you for subscribing. Piper Lynn, James McGowan, thank you. Kayleen. We have Saren, thank you for becoming a member. Bucket of Rocks, Scooby Doo Do Right, and Margaret Arnold. I think the war is against us, the people. Well, that's another thing we talked about. What was it, yesterday or the day before, that Time magazine has the biggest threat to 2024 is the United States versus itself. I guess we'll see. And NASA delays astronaut moon landing to at least 2026. So at first, I heard a lot of people saying it's been delayed a year. This has been delayed now, looks like almost 2 years. There are going to be plenty of people that are essentially, thank you. There are going to be plenty of people in our audience that are going to say, told you so. And I thought it was pretty wild too. The fact that they are delaying this for 2 years. Why? And I even said something, and I said, well, we'll see, because they're about to do moon landings again. I think that this argument, when this happens, will be settled. And I said, but who knows, when we get to the launch, they might say, oh, psych, actually, we're going to delay it. And then it gets delayed. I wasn't predicting that. That's not like a crystal ball thing. I said, if this happens, then a lot of people are going to really doubt it. And now they're delaying it. Of course, it says that they are delaying it until the 2026. The Artemis program, which aims to return astronauts to the moon this decade amid renewed international push for lunar exploration, is facing some lengthy delays. And guess what they're blaming it on? Elon Musk. It says the primary reasons for the delay include SpaceX's outlook for developing Starship, the gargantuan rocket and spacecraft system that is expected to ferry astronauts from lunar orbit to the moon's south pole. 2 Starship test flights in 2023 ended in explosions. So they're saying because they screwed up their explosions that we're gonna roll it back a little bit. SpaceX has had a long road ahead in developing its lunar lander. Even after Starship demonstrates the ability to make it safely to Earth's orbit, the company must hash out how to get to the vehicle enough propellant to travel out to the moon, a feat that is expected to involve at least 10 refueling flights, according to Jessica Jensen, SpaceX's vice president. But yet we did this already, before we had modern day computers. Or did we? Why do you think more and more people are questioning that original landing? Now, I don't think a lot of people question that maybe advanced secret government has gone there. But that public landing with the video and all of that, and I know people say if you question the moon landing, well, what the hell? They're saying that they'll need 10 refueling flights. They got there with the lunar lander had a computer. And by the way, they said dealing with their lunar landing and developing its lunar lander, they had something land on the moon back when the computer in the lunar lander was as strong as the microchip in a happy birthday card that sings to you now. That little tiny chip where if you rip open your birthday card, that tiny little chip that says happy birthday, that chip is as powerful as the original computer on the lunar lander. But yet we can't do it with all of our tech, with all of our transparent screens and our 360 spinning cars. I don't understand it. Dex, I guess like we talked about this a couple months ago too, like watch the Artemis get delayed. And then I said 2 years ago when they announced it, I said, well, we'll see this whole debate about, whether everything up there is as is when regular people start going up. And the Artemis was to start that off. There's no way that regular people are going to really start going up there until they get Artemis done and then things set up there. So this puts back that whole thing a few years.
Maybe they're delaying it long enough so that we can all get in our virtual worlds and just travel to the moon without going there. And then before we know it, they'll alter our reality and we won't even know that going to the moon wasn't something you couldn't do. Yeah, Neuralink, all that popping in, but who knows? Like they're pushing it back. They'll probably push it back again. Look, anything done with NASA always has a delay, always takes forever. Sure, it's nice that they can point the finger.
Why 2 years?
They can point the finger all they want at Elon. That's fine. It gives them an out. But we know, that anything they do just takes forever.
Well, and the national debt is at $34 trillion. They could be able to use that next. They cut the space program out entirely when we were at less of a debt and said, well, we should probably spend money on other things. And now we're at the highest debt ever and they're trying to go to the moon. But why? That's why I'm saying if this is truly, moving forward, why is it moving forward unless there's money involved or there is a disaster that they're trying to avoid? Watch at some point in the near future, just like in the movie Greenland, keep seeing all these shuttles and there's video of 20 shuttles taking off and heading towards space. I think then people would quickly realize like we're the ones that are going to be left behind. But who knows? We'll see. And guards beat and waterboarded prisoners in New York, lawsuits say. Dex and I were talking about waterboarding earlier, and I've always known basically that they say that it feels like you're drowning. And I actually had a couple of questions like how does that work even? Like do you put the rag over or whatever, right? And does water go in, or do they have it fine enough to where it just drips in, whatever else? Like how did they physically make you feel like you're drowning? Is it just drops of water, but how do you not then just choke, and how do you not actually drown when they are waterboarding? That's what I don't understand. If there is water going in through the rag, and if there isn't water going through the rag, then how does it make you feel like you're drowning? I don't want to try it, and I don't think any of you should either, but usually that's something that they would reserve for like Gitmo. But apparently they were doing it at this New York prison. So it says that they were waterboarding their prisoners. Two prisoners in upstate New York say that they were brutally beaten by guards and taken to different facility to be waterboarded, a method of torture once used by CIA interrogators and terrorism suspects, according to newly filed lawsuits. Waterboarding introduces the sensation of drowning in victims. The episode cited in the lawsuits by the men occurred October 7. What a day to get that done, right? At Great Meadow Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in Comstock, New York. It says more than 200 miles north of New York City. One man, Charles Wright, 44, was taken to a room and forced to lie face up while shackled to a bed. According to his lawsuit, a guard placed a dirty rag over his nose and mouth and poured water over it for 45 seconds. Another guard stood by, the suit says. The second man, Eugene Taylor, 32, was taken to a room where a guard, apparently the same one, placed a rag over Mr. Wright's mouth, affixed a cloth around Mr. Taylor's face, and repeatedly dunked his head in water while the other guard stood around. But why, right? Well, one thing I will say is if this really happened, these guys are getting early release. If they did have life in prison or something, they're probably getting that shaved away. Or if they had a 20-year sentence or something, I bet that's going to be reduced to, well, you guys get out tomorrow. We'll see you later. We'll fund your apartment for a couple years. If that really did happen, I bet this is going to be setting a precedent for things. And it's probably going to change the correctional facilities. Just my guess, though. Given the Department of Corrections Administration apparently approved. I get this. Dang it! Did it skip? Let's see here. Where did it go here? Given that the Department of Corrections Administration apparently approved of the brutality, no one should be surprised that some guards escalated the abuse. That's pretty savage. Dex, why were they trying to get information about other prisoners? It doesn't even say. Like, there's no. Well, I guess what was the motive? Was this CIA that came into the jail and did it, or was it just the prison guards?
Well, I guess they were both serving sentences for second-degree murder, and I don't know why exactly they would do this. I mean, that's sort of the big question. Like, is there something more to the story? Because all we're getting is out of a lawsuit. Like, this is a lawsuit that's being filed, so it's just a little bit of information, about the brutality against these two people, but we don't necessarily know the why. And by the way, the whole waterboarding thing, if my understanding, I did a little research on it, you're tipped back. So you do get like drowned, but it's very small amounts and so you get the feeling of it, but then they flip you back up and you're able to cough it out, and you don't actually perish from it. That's what's so crazy about it. And it's the most horrific feeling because you do feel like you're drowning, and water does go into your sinuses and nasal cavity while you're sort of tipped back or upside down almost. But yeah, why they would do that, why this is even an option in America, like you said, it's something you would have thought that, was rarely used and probably at Gitmo or somewhere like that if there was some horrific type of criminal that they're trying to get information out to save hundreds or even thousands of lives at a time, then let's just go take a couple prisoners and try and get some information out of them. Like, what are they trying to do?
Who said that? Said I James McGowan says I almost drowned on one drop of grape juice. Was this back when you were in second grade? Um, I guess I haven't seen anybody drink grape juice in a long time. But I get what you're saying. One drop is all it takes to feel like, something's gone down the wrong tube. That's scary. B barred. Somebody said LOL, James. It's just a funny thought. Like a drop of grape juice. All right, and then if you haven't already, another American company, Patriot Supply. If you need freeze dried food, if you've thought about freeze dried food, or if you don't know what it is, I'd highly recommend going and checking it out. Of course, you have all sorts of great stuff over there. You have a great deal on 3 month supply right now. There are all sorts of sales going on at all times for packages, anywhere from the 72-hour kit for a 3-day kit, all the way up to the 3 month where you get the most in bulk. If you are trying to get a certain amount ready, so if you have a family of 4 and you want 3 months for everybody, or you want 6 months, this is one of the most affordable ways to do it, other than having a machine yourself and doing it yourself. This is a great, great way to get bulk for very, very affordably. The freeze dried food essentially preserves in a way where it actually stays good for up to 25 years. It keeps in almost all of the flavor, it keeps in almost all of the nutrients, and it is, again, very easy to store because it essentially takes all of the air and oxygen out, like my lungs here, and it does it in such a way where you add that water in, or you cook it in water, and it brings it right back to life. So it is a very, very cool way to have your prep food stored, and takes up very little space. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. This is something that you have to get before a disaster, not after. And this is going to be useful for a storm. This is going to be useful for a power outage. It's going to be useful for, of course, hurricanes, or tornadoes, or earthquakes. Whatever you can think of as far as a disaster, it doesn't have to be the end of the world for this to kick in. Not to mention all of the issues heading into our national grid right now here in the U.S. We have had pretty much every state say that they are at their critical limits every single year during summer. So if you get it off season, that is the best time to do it. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. You don't need a code, just use that link and you'll automatically get the discount on whichever package you choose, or whichever packages have it. So marfooglenews.com/prep. You can also check out their other systems, like they have the Alexa Pure Pro. It is a commercial grade water filtration system that can get rid of 99.99% of all of the nasty contaminants, including pharmaceuticals, rust, bacteria, fluoride, chlorine, and all of the rest. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/prep. All right. And over to Clinton and Newsom hiding in Mexico. And it kind of is hiding. This is an extremely uppity resort here. So they are actually together right now. What do you think about that? With Bill in all of the different EpiPen files that are coming out right now, why in the world would Newsom want to kick it with him when he's on this path to become either a candidate, or the next prez, or a VP at some point, or a replacement for JB? He goes and meets with Bill during this couple weeks, right after last month visiting with Xi Jinping. Like, people aren't seeing it. I don't know what to say. Dex, why would he be hanging out with Mr. Billy, and especially right now?
Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. I mean, look, we thought it was interesting when we told you a day or two ago that Bill was there hiding. We jokingly called it hiding out. It was, the timing was just so perfect that he was there as the EpiPen docs were released. But now we find out, of course, he's there with his wife, Hill and Newsom. Like, what is Newsom doing? Why is all of a sudden he at the resort hanging out with the interns, so to speak? So yeah, something's up. They're all connected. I mean, look, you start connecting these dots amongst all these names, and they just seem to, you almost have to bang your head against the wall if you don't believe there's not something going on here outside of just standard politics. It's not that at all. But anyway, I'll leave the rest for your own minds and imaginations, and of course, all of the memes that are probably flowing over on X and other platforms.
You know what's crazy is when you think about how powerful people believe that Bill and Hill are, right? And when you think of how weak and how not in power and not in charge JB is. JB is the current president, but a lot of people say they put him in. What would be the difference between back when Bill ran and was put in place? A lot of people think that Obama is actually in charge. Is that a mental thing because these were well-spoken, very charismatic people that people believe that they have a lot of power behind the scenes? Because they were both presidents, right? But nobody believes T-Man has power. Nobody believes that Biden has power. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Dex, am I saying that right? Like Bill back then, but is it because now the change with corporations, they were there for the beginning of that? Why does nobody question that George Bush is behind the scenes pulling all the strings? Because he was an idiot, right? He wasn't well-spoken. He wasn't articulate. He made tons of gaffes. But the smart, well-spoken ones, they're like, oh, they're running things. And you don't think that they're not taking their orders from the corporations of their day, the oil companies and all of these? And what's even crazier, if you think these guys are in charge, back during their day, they made all of their money off of oil. Now, this new generation is trying to change towards electric and all of that. I just look at the logical breakdown of like what we all think as a community and how we look at, what is the actual truth and who's in charge. Everybody says that these two are. They were a power couple. Now, they could have made so much money back then. What really I think matters is the amount of money you have. And if you look at the net worths and whatever, Bill and Hill, they probably don't have the biggest public one. But I bet you they have way more money than anybody out here thinks, right? They could have Swiss bank accounts with $80 billion in it. They could have more money than Mr. Gates or Elon. How do you make that much money and able to keep it where you're making interest on your interest on your interest 20, 30, 40 years ago and not be richer than some of these guys? Well, some of those guys are making current money, but it's like, how are these guys the ones that everybody believes are in charge? Is it their connections? Is it their families? Is it because they're connected? Like that's what I genuinely want to know. Like, what is the theories for?
Well, what definitely wasn't running anything. Like you said, a lot of people thought he was dumb, but he was sort of playing it in my mind. And if you really think about it, it's his dad, before, who was probably more connected and more in charge of things that went on. Senior had a lot more control, especially with the three-letter agency and the route he came up through with that. But he's no longer with us, so to speak, or specifically, he's long past. But yes, a lot of people do think that the O is in charge. I don't know if it's as much him individually or if he's the one who is making the decisions on behalf of um, the power plays that are out there that have the money, that are not the money like you think Elon, the money that we just don't know about, the big, big power plays that are sitting out there that control a lot of the interest in a lot of our government and sort of shift anything they want at any time.
I thought it was interesting. I never heard anybody really question why. Why are they the ones that are in charge? Maybe they just have the bigger and better older connections. And then heading over to Jeffrey EpiPen's brother by Washington, D.C., accuses Bill Barr of covering up his siblings perishing. Who was Bill Barr protecting? Now, this is interesting because essentially Mark, his brother, says that he wasn't actually told what this information was, which would be a smart move. But maybe he's saying it because he's kind of insinuating, like, yeah, my brother told me the information on all these candidates, and that's that maybe that's his protection, right? What if his kill switch went to his brother Mark? Which a lot of people think that Mark may have some of the information that his brother may have given his brother a lot of stuff to hold on to. And there is new thoughts, especially since that newscast the other day, which we still haven't been able to update, where who was that? The woman reporter who said that we might hear from EpiPen himself. Who is that
Oh,
woman?
Megan Kelly.
Yeah,
And yeah, we don't know anything new from that. It was real. She did say it.
Yeah, so she said in her broadcast, well, I can't say anything just of now, and I will say stuff as I can and as I'm allowed to say, but we may be hearing from EpiPen himself, right? We don't know if that means there's an old video around or something, or if if he's still around. It makes me think, back to that whole the Reddit theory, and somebody they say worked at the jail there that was a Redditor that said, hey, this morning, and at the time before anything was crazy, it didn't seem like there was any motivation because he was still alive in there. And they said it was really weird. He's on this watch thing, and they just said that a van in the basement was checked in, logged in, and left, but then that log disappeared or got deleted. And they said that before they said that he was goners. So it was really, really weird. And then I think back to that, and that just disappeared. That story, that claim, everything just disappeared after that. I covered it that day, and then all of a sudden it was just gone. They said that a wheelchair and a van were both in the log system, and that somebody was moved. But then all of a sudden he was getting carted out to an ambulance, and people don't know if that was him or if that was something else or if that was a Hollywood double or something. But Mark, his brother, is really pissed and saying that that U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr is guilty of covering up his brother's death on Tuesday. During an appearance on News Nation's On Balance with Leland Vittert, EpiPen criticized Barr for announcing in August 2019 that his brother had perished from an apparent taking his own, when it wasn't really his position to do that, and claimed the investigation into him perishing had not been properly concluded. EpiPen pushed back against Barr's narrative that his brother's perishing was the result of, quote, a perfect storm of screw-ups. Yeah, Barr's narrative doesn't make any sense, and I agree with that it was a perfect storm of screw-ups. Right, yeah, that the film and everything, all the camera angles just disappeared. It's a bunch of BS. There's a reason why there was a certain hashtag attached to that whole thing, why that was so broad for a very long time. It's too hard to believe, and I don't think a lot of people do believe it. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and let's not forget, there is apparently some sort of connection between Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, and EpiPen. Apparently, the school that his father, Donald Barr, taught at is the same school that Jeff got hired at. And then Donald also published a book around that time that had some pretty outlandishly type, old men with young women and some things that they shouldn't be doing in that book. So there's a lot of speculation. It's so close that even Snopes has to say part of it is true, although they try to debunk all of it. But they had to say part of it is true. So go look into that one too if you're curious. But there's a connection there that Bill Barr may be trying to help, put this one under the rug.
And it says, I wasn't involved to his day-to-day life, so I don't know what he knows. But to go back to your initial question, why? I mean, you'd have to ask Bill Barr. If he was covering this up, which it appears to be, who was he covering it up for? Who was he protecting? It's a good question, and I don't think it will ever be answered. All right. And heading over to Ohio. It says EpiPen victim says Ohio billionaire Les Wexner engaged in acts with her. Now, Les Wexner, no surprise, 3 or 4 years ago, there was tons of YouTube videos. Even one I found that was narrated by Margaret Cho, and it was for Now This. Now This is like the most Ganda-ish so-called news slash PSA spreading entity. I don't know what to call it. But they say documents unsealed Tuesday from cases tied to Jeffrey EpiPen, who perished during facing federal trafficking charges, have named Ohio's richest person as one of those involved with his victims. The documents from the 17th Judicial Circuit Court of Florida tied to a January 16th, 2016 deposition of Virginia representative show quotes where she directly names L Brand's creator Leslie Wexner as one of the most powerful business executives she was trafficked to. That's him. And a lot of people get him confused with that other guy that swears a lot, that cusses. I got him confused for that at first. The guy that's always like, I'll tell you straight up thing. F that and F them. And if you want to be successful, then you got to F that and F that and F it in their effer. Just saying. It's like every other is a but it's not that guy. Just so you know, that guy's not part of the EpiPen files. But Les Wexner, he is. What is it going to mean? I don't know. But it's another person that just got thrown under the bus. I'm surprised many people aren't talking more about some of the celebrities that have been named for a long while, how some of the celebrities are still getting work, how some of the celebrities that were a part of this aren't somehow being questioned right now, that they are getting any kind of roles whatsoever if they had anything to do with this guy. They say, oh, I didn't know what kind of person he was. BS. Everybody knows the rumors. And then you go back later and you find out that these people totally knew years before he got caught. You even had, who was it? Was it, whose wife? McCain's wife even said, I think it was McCain's wife that said, oh yeah, we totally knew. Everybody totally knew what kind of guy he was. Just like Mr. Billy, Mr. Gatesy's. It's like everybody, you can just see it. But who knows? And Dex, do you want to let people know how they can get to the website?
Sure. Just head over to marfooglenews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show. If you type in that domain name, you'll see all the thumbnails for our recent shows. Look for today's show, click that thumbnail, and you'll see this webpage with everything we've covered. Links, sources, all of it's right there. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, you can also attempt, probably easier on Rumble, but on YouTube, you can attempt to find that description. It's down below. Click the little more button and try to expand it, and you'll see a show notes link. It'll take you right here. It's the easiest way. It should be the easiest way to get here. They just hide it from you.
Yeah, and I noticed they've done that to almost everybody. It's like they just don't want anybody that they don't want you going off to independent places. They want you to stay wherever you need to be, right? Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. And again, thank you, Shannon Crow. Oh, wow. Shannon Crow says, I met EpiPen in the 80s during modeling. He looks like Poltergeist guy, but loves Mickey D's. Easter egg hunt. We've got Chance Paladin. What's going on? Thank you for modding. B borrowed. Epi BFF Gates and wifey divorced. Yeah. No doubt why, right? And then Maxwell, now Minwell. Too late. We already left. And then Schaefer Girl, Sean C. But they always have an apprentice waiting to take over. Shannon Crow, what was it like meeting EpiPen? That's a good question, Spartacus. And great show, Dex and Marf. Domenico Lavara. Thank you. FUFO on. James Garcia, thank you. Sean C, thank you. Poco Loco, Chance Paladin, and Randy Man. Plasma Cats, Janet Ruth Haynes, no weapons formed against us shall prosper. Shannon Crow, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, thank you to Waiting for the King. I appreciate your support tonight. Inquiring Minds, thank you for this week's support. Stephen McMahon, KT Cleans a Lot, Ilea, Preppermint, Schaefer Girl, Judy Bira, again, thank you. C-Mac, Bones and Tubbs, Merlin, Quintris, Alex Hawkins, Wonderboy, Robin, and Be Real Beast, Danish Girl, Chanel Bivaliqua, from the Bible Belt, Tennessee, Liz W., Richard Koschmeider, and everybody else. Thank you, Dex, for your service tonight.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And did you guys appreciate the maps tonight? Let us know. We are always trying to make our show better, easier to follow, more educational, better informative, and better absorbable, really, so you remember what we talk about. So let us know in the chat below, and then make sure to thank your lovely mods by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shout. It's a shoutro. Why is the world on standby? I know that it don't have to be high to see the world is sitting on a standby. We all know the media lies, disappearing reason to beehives. It's gonna take a while to realize their enemies are you and I. All you gotta do is ask why. Why is the world on standby? World on standby. World on standby. 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 Bye. 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 Media lies, disappearing reason to beehive. All right, thank you guys. Much love. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marf out. Stealth mode. Jonathan Earl. Thank you. Top supporter. Thank you to Waiting for the King. Waiting for the king. Waiting for the king. Waiting for the king. Gonna make a fresh one. Gonna make a fresh one for waiting for the king. Waiting for the king.